All right, welcome back. So in this video, we will continue talking about Android, of course, but now we are going to start talking about some of the widgets that Android brings us. Okay, already looked at a few widgets such as buttons, text views, view in general is a widget as well, image views, and so forth. Okay, the next widget that we are going to talk about is going to be the radio button. Now, I went ahead and created a new project I called it Radio Buttons. All right, so go ahead and do the same. By now, you should be very comfortable doing that. So go ahead and create a new project and call it Radio Buttons. So once you have that, go ahead and open the activity main.xml here in the design mode, and you should have this. Now, once you're here, we want to go into our palette, and I'm going to go do a little search, say radio, and there we go. We see here we have radio button and radio group. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit what a radio button is. A radio button is just a button that allows users to turn it on or off. You want to use a radio button usually in a radio group because the idea is to only allow users to select one option. So here's an example here, right? So we could have an app that asks the users whether they are attending a certain event or not. So you could have a yes, maybe a no. So if a person says yes, that means they're attending. If they say no, that means they're not. Maybe, it's a maybe, they're not sure. Okay, but this won't allow the users to select 2 or 3 of them. It only allows users to select one option, which is exactly what radio buttons are supposed to do. Okay, so now how do we then create this radio group? Okay, radio group that will host the radio buttons. Well, very easily. What we do, we just drag the radio group into our screen here, drop it there, and let's go ahead and center it. Make sure it's in the middle. I'll go like that. Perfect. Get to the bottom here, and let's do that. There we go, and there we go. Okay, so as you can see here in the component tree at the left, you should see here constraints layout, which that's what we should have at all times. And then we notice that our radio group horizontal has been added here under our constraints, which is good. Okay, so now once we have that, we can go ahead and start adding radio buttons into our radio groups. Okay, because if you look at this example, just as an example, this whole thing here would be the radio group. Each individual item here is a radio button. Okay, so the radio group hosts the radio buttons. Okay, so let's go ahead and put all these radio buttons inside of our radio groups here. Okay, so you notice if you open that, you see the radio button 5 that we just added was added. Let's add another one. There we go, and you can see they're being added. Let's keep adding, and we have there. Okay, you notice that our Android Studio here just gave all of these radio buttons random names. We can change that, no problem. Perfect. So let's go ahead and look at all this syntax here, what really is happening in the background. Let's go ahead and open the text here. You can see we have our radio group. You can see our radio group is hosting all of these 3 radio buttons. So let's go here. And what we're going to do now is to change each radio button's ID. So let's call this yes ID. Okay. This one, let's call this maybe ID. And the last one, let's call this no ID. That looks wonderful. Perfect. So now if you go back here, we should see they all have different IDs. While we're here, I like to give all the views IDs. So I'm going to say here ID. And I'm going to give this an ID, and look at the syntax here. We could have obviously done under our design, but we're going to just do it here so that you have a broader view of how to do things here. So let's call this radio ID, radio group ID. That's fine. Let's go back to our design here, and you should notice that if we click on our radio, If we go to ID, we should see here it says radio group ID. That's exactly what we want. Perfect. That's great. Let's give it a little run here so we can see how are things looking. And there we go. We have our radio buttons. Notice that, as we said, radio buttons only allow the selection of one option, which is wonderful. You can see here we didn't have to do much, and the behavior is already here. Okay, let's go ahead and change the name of these radio buttons, right? Because all of them say radio button, radio button, radio button. Let's change that to be more descriptive. All right, so here we are. We have a text here. The first one, of course, we said it's a yes. Just go ahead and put a yes. And the next one, we are going to say maybe. But as we said before, we should not do this, which is to hard code the names. We should create actually a resource in the XML file. So say new string, we're gonna call this maybe. I'm gonna just call this maybe. Resource value, it's gonna be maybe. Say like that. Okay, let's go back to our yes and change that also to our a resource val. I'm gonna call this yes, and it's gonna be yes. Perfect. That's a good habit. Okay, we're gonna call this, what is this? No. No. Okay, that's the value. Okay, perfect. As you can see, things haven't really changed much, but at least we know that we are doing things the proper way. I'm gonna run this one more time. And again, if you want to be able to run this, or just say Control R, and it will automatically run this for you. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. Or you can just go and click this play button here, and there we go. Now we have yes, maybe, and no. Let's put a text view at the top that says attending, so that way we can kind of emulate this example here. So how do we do that? We go ahead and look at text. Get rid of this text, find text view. Say text view. There we go, text view. You go all, and you will see that text view. Put it there, and let's make sure it's at the top there and up to there. And at the bottom here, we just want to make it really close. It's fine. Make it centered. How about move it a little bit there? Okay, let's save it. In fact, let's change a few things to make it a little bit bigger. And let's change the font. Oops, I did something wrong. Control Z. Let's go and find text size. It says size, text size. Let's give it a size of 18. Maybe say 24. Why not? Perfect. There we go. And let's go ahead and change the text. So how do we do that? We're going to go ahead and say text. Let's search again here just to be faster. So text instead of text view. What we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add as a resource. We're going to call this attending. And we're going to say attending question mark, and there we go. And you should see it says attending there. Okay, let's go ahead and save this and run one more time to see how is it all looking. How things are looking here. Let's see. And there we go. Attending. It's a little bit up here. It's a little bit too. There's a distance here. Let's go ahead and bring it back down here, closer. There we go. That should work. I think that's the closest we can get. That's perfect. Okay, let's run one more time. There we go. That looks good. All right, perfect. So now that we have this set up, we will, in the next video, we will be able to then interact with our radio buttons. Okay, see you next.